Good evening and welcome to Rhythm Roast Cafe. Come on in, open up that laptop or your cell phone, your smartphone, and get ready to dial us up and chat with us. We've got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to be talking about the unfortunate demise of one of rock's heroes, Sly Stone, who I wore my Sly Stone coat for, see? Okay. He brought fringe back in style. Okay, this is my coat when I was a college agitator. You know, I'd go around the agitator. Anyway.
You're agitating us now.
I'm agitating. My producer's ready to quit. Anyway.
Hey, Wild Bill, wait for me.
Yeah, really. Well, we're going to go on from that and talk a little bit about the riots going on in California since Sly Stone produced his own riot here in Chicago. We can compare a little bit.
That was in Grant Park, right?
Yeah, it was in Grant Park.
There.
Were you there?
Yes, I was there. Okay, I was there and I was lucid for half of it. Okay, the other half of it, Butch and I were...
Do you recall the lucid parts for our audience?
Yeah, what happened was we had Doc Gandolf's General Store back in the '68, okay, and a bunch of us from this hippie coffee house were going to go down, take the L and go downtown to see Sly. And it was right after he had been hot off of the Woodstock thing, you know, and everybody was doing fire, you know.
Actually, they say that the peak of Woodstock was the midnight show of Sly Stone.
Oh,
absolutely.
I
want to take you higher. They
Absolutely.
said it was after that everything crashed. They said that was actually the crescendo. I'm probably using the wrong word, but they said that's when Woodstock peaked, was Sly Stone set at the
Most
end
white
of the,
kids never heard of the guy until that show, okay? And then the album that came out afterward. And
it's the best performance in the movie, that's for sure.
Yeah,
well,
and that's what people were saying. Anybody said that was saying that was there said that was
Mountain played there, but they didn't get into the movie because Mountain wasn't the tastemakers.
Well,
rock and roll tastemakers never really.
Alvin Lee did get in the movie.
Mountain. Alvin Lee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Forever. Fast fingers, Alvin Lee.
That goes on, and then I fall asleep, you know, watching that. Come on, you know, finish up, do the song. Rock and
I
roll
always-
song's supposed to be 3 minutes. That's what brought the Ramones on. They were a reaction to Alvin Lee playing a song for 15 minutes and putting people to sleep.
Well, there was that Country Joe and the Fish part of it. That was
Well,
kind of,
everybody-
somewhere sideways.
That's when the most people said the F word in an event ever, probably. That's why that got
Right.
you know, the
much-
guitarist
so much play.
from Country Joe and the Fish, he became a lawyer.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, I'll
stayed
tell
on
you
the
one
guitar.
thing. One thing, God doesn't like outdoor rod festivals. He doesn't like smelly hippies because I haven't seen or been to one that hasn't rained. Okay, I mean, it started at Woodstock, and when we did we sent 140 people to from our security company in Chicago. We sent them to Woodstock '94. It was called, right?
Yeah.
Woodstock '94 in Saugerties, Saugerties, New York, and sure enough,
That was-
it rained after the first night. It rained the second night. It rained the third day. We were caught. These kids stood. Do you remember? They stood in the front of the stage and didn't move. They ate there. They peed there. They dumped there. It smelled like a sewer after 2 days. You know, it was unbelievable.
There was a part of me that was upset that I missed that, and then you guys got back because I was running the shows at the World
you
Music
smelled our
Theater
clothes?
at the Aragon, and I said, "Yeah, I'm kind of glad I didn't make that trip. I heard it was brutal." Getting back to Sly Stone, I always said that I think Sly Stone would have been more of a legend than he really was if he would have died. If he was screwed up enough, he would have been up there with Janis Joplin,
Well,
and
yeah, he
Jimi
would-
Hendrix.
he would have joined
and
the
Van
28
Morrison,
Club.
because he was. I mean, everybody calls James Brown the granddaddy of funk. It was Sly Stone.
Mm-hmm. was Sly Stone.
Sly Stone is the guy that really created funk music with horns and dancing and everything else.
He out-funked Funkadelic.
Yeah, he did. But he just crashed, and and just fell off the
heroin.
face of the earth. Well,
Okay,
like
we
anything
saw
else.
him.
He had a reputation for not showing up at shows.
Butch and I got to the. We left Doc Gandalf's, took the L, went down to Grant Park, started drinking some wine out of somebody's Boda bag or whatever. Did the mistake of being a hippie and cashed in on a past bottle of wine that was being passed around. I don't know what they put in it, but from that point on, it was half real and half unreal. You
All right,
had
so
an
get to
epidemic.
the real part of the show.
So we're sitting on the
There
steps.
was no show.
Well, we're sitting on the steps of the planetarium, because Grant Park is right there, and we're waiting for Sly Stone to come, and then Butch hits me on the shoulder and he says, "Isn't that him?" And he points to the hotel across Michigan Boulevard, and sure enough, he's there. He's drinking something. He's looking out the window. You can't ignore who Sly Stone was. Okay, it was at that point he could have been Elvis. You would have known him anywhere, right? He's watching, and then he fades away. Then all of a sudden, we start to see police tricycles, the Chicago three-wheelers, and they're going through the crowd, and the guys are on the microphones, and they're going, "The park is now closed. The park is now closed. You must exit. You must exit the park. There will be no show." Now, if I'm not mistaken, Jane Byrne started this. Wasn't this Jane Byrne's
No,
whole
Jane-
thing?
Jane
What
Byrne.
was an
It's
official
60
Chicago thing?
Well,
I think Old Man Daly was right.
Was it Old Man Day? It was 68.
He would.
Well,
It would
Jane
have been
Byrne,
Old
no,
Man
Jane
Daly.
Byrne was in the mid to late 70s.
All right, then somebody did this to ease up the young people's pressure against the government, right? And they were going to have a series of concerts in the
Well, they
in
had
Grant
Jefferson
Park.
Airplane show
Jefferson
in Grant
Airplane
Park.
was the week
That was
before.
68.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
so
68.
it was before
68
the,
or
obviously
60,
before
so
the
before
69.
Byrne.
69. I'm
Well,
thinking it was 69.
before the 69 convention when everything,
Right.
same place,
Right.
different
Same
group.
place, different. Well, same group, different action. You know,
It
but
was like a year after the convention, at least.
I can remember
Before.
though. To get back to that show, I can remember sitting on those steps and watching bottles and cans start to go in the air. And then they were going towards the stage, and then they were coming from the stage, coming back, and they were going back and forth. And because I was, a little bit inebriated, slightly, it resembled being inside a popcorn machine. You know how all the popcorn goes in every direction possible. So after a while, the police are going through the crowd with their motorcycles or tricycles, telling people that they got to leave. Somebody starts throwing cans and bottles at the cops, and I said, "Uh-oh, that shit's gonna
And the
hit the
cops'
fan."
reaction was.
Well, the cops' reaction was to call in reinforcements. You
And
know,
the cops' reaction was.
well, they got reinforcements, and the reinforcements came in on buses, and they used tear gas, to disperse the crowd. But before they got to the tear gas, before they were able to get the crowd in, I think Fatwater was the band that was on stage. They were supposed to, they're a local band kind of, so they were trying to keep the crowd tame, and they weren't able to do it. And then all of a sudden, I don't know who decided to do this, but somebody brought up the Black Panthers, the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers. And the guy who got to the stage, and because I was so loaded, I've remembered this speech verbatim to this day, because I looked at Butch and Butch looked at me, and we were high out of our minds, and we repeated it to ourselves because we were so impressed with this black guy who came from Triton College named Fred Hampton, who got to the stage, grabbed the mic, and said, "I am so revolutionary, proletarian, intoxicated, I cannot be astronomically intimidated." Right on, okay? I looked at Butch looked at me, and we repeated it. And we kept repeating it till we burned in our memory,
And
came back.
that accomplished what?
Nothing, absolutely nothing, because after that, the cops came with more tear gas.
It accomplished a story.
Right. But it was a story. It was an event and something that was burned in my brain.
In our dotage, we have stories.
That's absolutely true.
There's people that go through life, they don't have any stories.
No stories.
They didn't do a damn thing.
We got stories.
Are
If
they
there's something
ordinary?
We have some stories.
We have stories.
We
You
definitely
know?
I'll tell you. Now, there's something else I wanted to say as far as history goes. Okay, because we're talking this, we're taking this whole coffee house thing as a way to bridge the gap between conservatism, liberalism, and centrism. Okay, to kind of make it all one. But a lot of people don't know where it started from, or where the identity is. And I'm glad I got my historian friend right here next to me, because he can correct me if I'm wrong. But didn't this all start back at the Louis XVI, the States General, when he would convene a court, and he would have the aristocracy and the clergy seated to his right, and the commoners would be seated in the not the bourgeois, but the entrepreneurs would be seated to the left. Huh?
The deplorables? The deplorables
No,
are
no,
the
no,
right.
they- no,
No,
no.
the
Deplorables on the right.
deplorables didn't have anything. The French Revolution
right.
was started by frustrated middle class people,
Right.
Not by the poor and the peasants. Most revolutions come from frustrated middle class people. They can't work
So
their
the
way
whole
up.
concept of being on the right meant that you were conservative from the very beginning, because you had the power, you had the land, you had the authority, and you didn't want to change, okay? And the people on the left, actually the Latin word for left is
Sinistra.
sinistra, okay? Sinister. It's the root for sinister, right? So the people on the left were always looked at.
You want me to debate that point?
People on the left were traditionally looked at askew, okay, and being suspect.
Okay,
you know,
so that's where the terms come from, but that's not actually the evolution of politics in America.
well, it kept on going right, left, okay? They'd say you're rightist, you're leftist. I mean, it went to the
But
1900s when you had Lenin, and he was against the power brokers, so he was a leftist.
But what,
you know?
what the rightists and the leftists believed has changed over time.
Well, yeah, sure. Just like the Republicans and Democrats were totally flipped from before the
Right.
the Civil War.
Well,
you know?
the Republicans flipped in 1876.
Right.
They went from, looking out for black people to saying to hell with them.
Well, I don't know if it was just that. My problem with Republicans is that I don't have a problem with the issue on abortion, okay, because that's a moral issue, and you have a right to have a moral opinion. You know, what I have a concern about is they're real hot to trot and making sure you have that baby. But after the baby comes in, they don't give a goddamn what happens to it.
That's not true.
What? How
It's not true,
many
Danny.
works do they do for? Tell
That's-
me,
that's not
who
true.
did the child labor laws? Republicans or Democrats? Okay,
Whatever
I mean,
the child labor laws are, it has nothing to do with a person having a child and being responsible for taking care of
some
that
people
child.
aren't responsible. Is the kid
Well, then people
responsible?
then they shouldn't have children.
Well, is the kid responsible for that?
No, but
Is
they
it
have
their
to-
fault? Well, that's my point. You
No,
punish both.
But it doesn't mean that they don't care what happens to the child after it's born. And that's just a
Well, what do they
horribly
do to
general
care
statement.
for it? They're against every program that ever is launched to care for kids that are either orphans or have a single parent or a subpar living.
What conservatives believe that abortion shouldn't be a form of birth control. That if you're going to have sex, if you're going to have coitus and have orgasms, then you have to understand there's consequences for that, and you have to be responsible enough to do that. Okay, and you have to be responsible enough that if you put yourself in that position and you have a child, you have a responsibility. Period. End of story.
Yeah, I
Okay.
know, but you know what, Nick? That totally negates the Dunning-Kruger effect. They're too stupid to know that they're too stupid to know that. Okay, I mean, you can't.
What has to be dealt with is the
Too
fact
bad.
that people should have responsibilities.
Right.
But a lot of them, they
Don't know.
They just don't. And you have to deal with the fact that they don't.
Listen, you guys know my position on abortion. I don't like it. I think it's a necessary evil. We talked about immorality. You know, you've put a value judgment on a human being, regardless of its form. I've heard debates now where it's not a human, it's a parasite. It's not a parasite.
No, it's not a parasite.
A parasite lives off a foreign body. It's a foreign thing that lives off a foreign body. It's not a parasite. It has its own DNA.
Don't go down that rabbit hole.
Well,
okay?
I'm not, but I'm saying
yeah.
these are the arguments that you hear in terms of the pro-choice.
You know, I only
movement.
have one problem with conservatives. They're anecdotal minded. Okay, they find that one sore spot, that irretrievably stupid example of what a liberal will do. Okay, and they say,
You
"Well,
guys
you know,
did
this
that
is
to me
extreme."
last week when I tried to talk about there was a systematic cover-up of how bad Joe
Biden
Biden
was?
was, and you went, well, Trump lied during his campaign. I mean, that was just just an example of what you just accused me of doing.
Well, that's true.
That's
Okay.
whataboutism.
It's not even whataboutism, but go ahead.
You know, but the abortion thing, you know, the thing with Republicans is that they are against a lot of things that are in favor of human life. Safety on the job. Thousands of people get killed on the job every year. But anything that's brought up to make job safety, since Nixon, OSHA went in under
Yeah,
Nixon.
Nixon
by the way.
was a safety-minded guy.
They were against it. They're just automatically against it. The Republicans in Congress
Well, I think
are
it's
automatically against anything like that.
I think as a general rule, they're against overregulation. Okay.
Yes.
Now, to how far does that take OSHA or any other government entity? I think that depends on the situation that you're in.
Well,
but
what happens with under-regulation? Don't we get things like the Gulf spill that destroyed the shrimp industry in the Gulf of Mexico, or Gulf of America?
I don't know. Is the shrimp industry destroyed down there?
Well, it was destroyed for 2 years.
Yeah, it happens.
We had to
Yeah,
subsidize
okay.
them for 2 years. Taxpayers did. Why? Because we didn't want to subsidize enough inspectors to go down and inspect those oil drilling wells to see that they were done the correct protocol
Well,
way.
I think technology has probably helped that a lot in the last 20 years as well.
No, the fact
technology-
is we didn't.
the
What
technology
they said
has
at the
gotten
time is we didn't have enough inspectors. The well wasn't inspected during the time that protocol said it should have been
So
inspected.
to use your example, you pick up the one example
Yeah.
that okay.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
This
I
is-
right
this
back
is-
at you.
I would bet that was a non-union job. Because if I'd have been, if that was a union job and I was the steward on the job,
Yeah,
I would have stopped them drilling.
yeah.
I would have stopped them. I said, "You're going to stop."
And you would have had the power to stop him.
And yeah, and if you don't stop, we're just not going to work.
And that's what people.
There was nobody there to force that company to be safe.
Well, you see-
they knew they were having trouble.
See-
and management that said, "Oh, we're going to go anyway."
What America doesn't really.
I would give up I would give up minimum wage. I would give up OSHA.
Don't give up too
everything.
much.
No, if unions had more freedom to organize, it's very difficult to organize in this country. All the laws are stacked against you. But unions would be a market solution to low wages. Unions would be a market solution
To regulation.
to safety on the job, and a market solution to workplace regulation.
There are other market solutions that are not governmental. I guess you would call it bureaucratic fiat, is what they would be. And one of them is the insurance agency.
That's where I was
Okay?
going.
They do more regulations on you than the government ever did.
Well, I might have said this here before. I think there's two roots of all evil in the universe: is Disney and insurance companies in any way, shape, or form. Okay, yeah, and insurance companies they've just got a stranglehold on everything.
Oh, do you think they're bad here? I couldn't drive in Europe. You know why I can't drive in Europe? I'm 2 years over the driving age to get insurance. It's okay to drive legally, but it's not okay
Nobody
to drive
will
if you
insure
don't
you.
have insurance. And there isn't a damn country, a company in Europe that'll sell me insurance because I'm 2 years over the legal limit.
And if you recall, that was the big thing. Everybody's got to have insurance, mandatory insurance. Everybody has insurance, your rates are going to go down.
Right. Never happened.
It never happened. Just keep
Well,
going.
it was the same thing when they said we got to raise the drinking age from 18 to 21 for the kids, and then the driving insurance rates will go down because there'll be less drunken driving kids. Number one, no less drunken driving kids. They were still the same amount. Number two, rates never went down. They just kept going up. So BS.
Well, you know,
So,
the
medical
anti-gun
insurance.
people like to say that the leading cause of death among children under 10 years old is guns. Well, I don't look at that so much as a bad thing about guns as a good thing about modern medicine. That no, these
Saved
kids
a
used to
bunch.
die from whooping cough and used to die from measles, and geez, there's so few kids dying from natural diseases. They're getting shot as a leading cause now.
Yeah, it's becoming an
That's-
elevated
that's a
way to
good
die
sign.
for kids.
That's a good sign.
And all because of irresponsibility.
Well, no, what he's saying is
outside of crime, where a lot of young kids are getting shot because of crime. The other one is accidental shootings because of just irresponsibility.
yeah, because
well, there's all those kids that can get a hold of their mother's gun and
irresponsibility.
I
Tell me,
it-
Nick,
it's
why would you have
irresponsible.
a gun at home?
Why?
Yeah,
In my business?
in anybody's business.
Well, I don't know about your business, but my business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I
So you got a gun, all right.
I deal with a lot of crazies.
I understand.
Okay.
But if somebody tries to break in your house 2:00 in the morning, where's that gun?
I'm not telling you.
Oh, okay. Is that gun under your pillow?
I'm not telling
Okay,
you.
you're not saying.
I
that
had guns because I enjoyed shooting.
okay, but
And I
yours
used
are
to
locked
go to
up.
the shooting range. I took the bolts out of the rifles and I locked them in a box.
Okay,
So
so
if I got mad at Matthew, and
You wouldn't
felt
shoot his brains out.
He had time to run down the street before I could get the bolt out, unlock the box,
well,
put
it's
the
the same
bolt in
thing.
the gun. He'd be
Joe
gone.
Bad Guy breaks in your house and you'll be fumbling around while he shoots you or
I
stabs
never
you.
thought about.
You know?
That never even any. I don't
There's
think
so
about
many
people doing
recorded
that.
cases of people defending their property properly with a firearm from their home, though. And isn't that the general idea of firearms? Is
Yeah.
to protect your property?
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
one.
why would you not have
sure.
it in your home?
Yeah.
How do you protect your property without it there?
Or the other legal place is in your business, your fixed place of business.
Or your business,
your
right?
That's the statute says that.
Right. My point is this: that it can. The time, if somebody wants to get you, they're going to get you at your most vulnerable time, and your most vulnerable time is when you're not able to get to that gun, for whatever reason. Okay, you have kids, so you put it in a secure place so that the kids don't accidentally shoot themselves. So then, what happens when you have to emergency get it within 60 seconds? You can't. Okay, if
I
you
can
can
tell you
get
that
it
I-
within
I
60
can
seconds,
tell you that I
you can get to
personally
that gun
know
in 60
people
seconds.
that have had their home invaded
Yeah.
and they have successfully defended themselves, their home, and all the property they were trying
Did
to
they
acquire.
have their guns locked up?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I could name 5 people within
I
touching
find that
radius
hard
of
to
our
believe.
town that
I
have
can
firearms
break into your
next to
house
their
and you
bed
wouldn't
locked
know
up.
it until
Okay,
you were
Dan,
dead.
it's not like you got to hit the bank or you got to like turn the dial
Fingerprint.
on the combination lock to get into the safe anymore. They have some very convenient ways for you to access a firearm pretty quick, even a secured, pretty quick.
I'd have to sleep with one that's attached to my arm, like that guy in that movie where he goes.
America was one with the gun. See, England was one with the sword. That's why they're not gun nuts.
Well, it's kind of hard to fight off invaders with a damn sword.
Wasn't it Sebastian Maniscalco?
Here,
Get the
this
machete.
one right back here.
Get the machete.
Well, the last time England was overrun by conquerors in 1066, they were armed with the sword.
Hey, what's with these Scandinavians? They had to beat up on the English 3 times. Okay, they came in, and well, it's the Anglo-Saxons that they had to beat up on. You know.
Who were Germans?
Yeah, they beat up on them a couple times. All right. Anyway, I was going to talk about taxes and how to save Social Security. Here's one. It's kind of intrusive to the 1%, but it doesn't have anything to do with income tax. Okay, what most people don't understand, in truth, is that Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid come out of a separate tax altogether. It's called FICA, Federal Insurance Compensation Act. Okay, this particular type of tax is only deducted from a paycheck. You have to get paid by somebody to get FICA taken out of your payroll. Otherwise, you have to contribute it voluntarily with your tax return.
If you're self-employed, you
At
can
the end of the year.
You pay quarterlies.
Oh,
You
quarterly.
pay a quarterly estimate,
Right.
or an end of
If
the
you
year.
have rental property or if you're a business.
But though it.
But here's
if
how
you
you
pay
don't
quarterly,
pay
it
for it.
still goes towards that.
No, now wait a minute.
Yes, it does.
Now wait a minute. If you are Warren Buffett and you don't take a paycheck at all, but you get your entire income from dividends or interest, none of that's FICA taxable. Not a penny. Not a penny. He can make $1 billion a year off of his dividends or his interest, and none of it's taxable for FICA.
So when
Not penny.
So obviously you have an issue with that.
Well, do you think?
So
That's every
all right,
billionaire. That's
so-
Bezos. That's Zuckerberg. That's all of them.
Okay, so let's just take for a moment that when Obama had the entire House, Senate,
Why
and the
didn't he do it?
presidency, why didn't he change it? And I'll tell you why, because Trump said it in his debate against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Because all the people that are giving you money, that's the way they want it, and you're not going to change it for
That's
them.
exactly half of it. The other half of it
exactly all
was,
of
if you look at the propaganda that came out, they said because Nancy Pelosi sponsored the bill to do that. Nancy Pelosi wants
To
a
do
tax
what?
to tax FICA tax, to place a FICA tax on unearned income, on income that you got through dividends and interest.
Capital gains and all that stuff.
Okay. For
Well, it's not capital gain until you take it, and then
No,
you're
it's not
taxed
a
on it.
capital gain.
Yeah.
It-
Then you're taxed on it.
right.
Because now it is income. Once you cash it in as a capital gain, then it is income.
Yeah, but it's not on FICA.
Right. No,
No, not on FICA. FICA is for
I understand.
unemployment and employed people, okay? Only, nothing else. The take on it from conservatives against Nancy Pelosi's bill was that the headline said, Pelosi wants to tax your IRAs, okay? Because that's where your interest would come from. That's where you would get dividends from. Okay, you're not getting a paycheck from your IRAs. You're getting an interest or a dividend disbursement. And if you pass that bill, they're saying that would be susceptible to that tax.
Is this a bill that they introduced not too long ago?
Oh no, it was during Obama's administration. Okay, and the reason why it didn't go, okay, is that the Democrats jumped in with the Republicans. Every conservative on board.
Obama was a conservative.
Every conservative, and it didn't matter what party you belonged to, they didn't want you to take FICA out of their interest payments.
So what you're saying is
Yes.
It's the rich who control the tax code.
Oh, absolutely.
And so therefore, the politicians follow the rich because that's where they need their endorsements and their money from.
And that's why we have a representative government,
Well-
so that we can't have poor people who can vote directly, which is my next point.
Well,
My next
think
point
that's
is-
a little too simplistic, but okay, make your next point.
My next point is that our U.S. Constitution doesn't allow for a couple things. Number one, what's going on right now, passe comitatus, it doesn't allow for that. You know, for the president to enable the Marines to squelch a demonstration unless it's an actual insurrection.
Does it give him?
That's the job of the regular army, not
Does
the
it
Marines.
does it give him the right to protect federal workers and federal
Yes.
employees and federal property?
Yes,
Okay.
but that's not what they were doing. Did you watch it? Okay, they
whatever-
were behind the police lines.
Whatever I saw,
Yeah.
I didn't see any army and I didn't see any National
I didn't
Guard.
see
And
them do
watched,
anything.
And
Yeah.
I purposely last night watched CNN, MSNBC,
No.
who it wasn't bloody enough for them, and they went to some other program.
No, nothing was happening. Okay, I went to
Not till the middle of the
CBS.
night.
Nothing was happening on
Okay.
CBS.
So from what I saw, and we've been in the business, Danny,
Right.
okay, we got overrun by the Grateful Dead heads at the World Music Theater.
Yeah, the first time, yeah.
And
We made
and
adjustments.
What did we do?
They were
we
like
called
Zulus.
we called in the dogs.
Yes.
Literally
We
called in the dogs. We called in a canine unit. They had these mangy, flea-infested, mean-ass dogs that the Grateful Dead heads thought that they were going to become one with, and they got a rude awakening. But the bottom line is they called in for backup. My point is
But they didn't call in. Trump called it. He didn't let the government. The governor's supposed to call it in, but he didn't.
to assist the police department, yes, to protect federal property and federal employees.
That's what he did. Yes.
That's what he's doing. He's perfectly within
Yes, to do that.
his power to do that. So it's not a posse comitatus thing.
But he was.
Okay.
They weren't around the building only. They were in the street and they were across the street.
Okay.
And they were pushing
So-
people down the street.
So you know better than anybody
Yeah.
that once you lose control of a crowd, it's very difficult to get it back, right?
Oh no! Until they get tired out.
It's very difficult to get back.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an ebb and flow to the energy.
Right? Hank Williams Jr. at the World Music Theater, we got dumped on for an hour. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was in the middle of that. Yeah, I got in trouble on
We
that one.
eventually got it back.
Because most people just burnt out and left.
Well,
okay.
they run out of
Listen,
energy.
We went through this before. We went through this in 2020 with the George Floyd riots. These are not peaceful protesters. These are people that have blocked off highways, that are throwing bricks on top of police cars and at police cars. These are people that are setting fires.
That
to
was
cars.
George Floyd.
No,
These
no,
are-
no. They're doing that now.
No, no. I
Danny-
was
It,
watching
it
Danny,
them.
100% is
they're doing it
happening
now.
right now. There are
They're
literally
doing it now.
dozens of burning
You need-
cars in the streets.
You need to get off Rachel Maddow and watch somebody else. Okay, they're doing it
wasn't
now.
on Rachel Maddow.
All right, they're doing it now. Okay, there's video of cops just driving out and their guys are throwing bricks right at the cars.
All right,
Right.
what's their issue?
So I don't care what their issue is.
Okay.
All right, if somebody spit on one of our security guards, what would happen?
Well, it's battery. They'd get battered back.
How bad would they get battered back?
As bad as they could.
I've always
Right.
said, I go, you can do a lot of things to people and we'll take it. You spit in my face and you are somebody's going to
the
get
law says that's battery. You have
I
a right to
understand what the
defend
law
yourself.
says, but in terms of the laws of concert security, if somebody
no law there.
right. If somebody listen, people would get drunk, they'd
Yeah,
swing, they'd throw up
yes,
on us.
we would
okay?
do a lot
But
of
if
stuff
somebody
for 'em.
spit in one of our guys'
Well, it was-
faces, that was kind of a green light to
Yeah,
go,
it was- yeah.
okay, handle it, and then we'll
Yeah.
get rid of them. All right, okay, that's what's happening, and you know better than anybody that if you are going to quell that type of force, that type of antagonism, you have to have people behind you in place to be ready to supplement what's going on.
I would do it a different way.
You might have done it differently.
I would
but
have gotten.
he's within his right to do it.
I would have gotten teams of 5 to 10, and I would made them covert so that they wouldn't have uniforms and guns and all that other stuff on, and I would put them in groups inside the plant them inside the rioters, okay, and they'd be equipped with radios.
You want the SS?
Yes,
You want
absolutely.
the SS?
No,
Oh, okay.
I want information.
You want the storm troop. You want the SS to come in and surreptitiously grab
None of
people
them would
off the
have
street.
jackboots on. and
Can
they
you
wouldn't
see
do
how
that.
that would play out?
No, I'm saying.
Tom, how would that play out?
That would be the Gestapo, not the SS.
I'm sorry, Gestapo.
Yeah, we did the Gestapo, right.
But
The SS would kill him after.
So how would that play out in the general media?
They wouldn't know about it.
Oh, please, Dan.
All I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them the who's doing what and where they're at. Okay? That's all you need.
What I'm interested in is the politics of the whole thing. And how the hell did the Democratic Party get on the wrong side of this issue?
That's the answer. That's the
You know, the Democratic Party is supposed to be sticking up for working people, citizens. It's supposed to be standing up for the citizenry of the United States. And to take a stand on protecting people that are in this country illegally and working jobs that would pay more if there weren't illegal people to do those jobs. Everybody says, oh, Americans wouldn't do that job. That's bullshit. Well, you can find Americans.
We talked about it.
The wages have to go up. But how did the Democrats get on the wrong side of this issue?
Because they're smart.
I think they're so afraid of of appearing racist.
Why would you say they're smart to be on that
Because
side?
they look at it from an economic point of view, and they look at it from a sociological point of view, and they look at it from a military.
And losing
And I
elections
told you
point of
last
view.
week, again, I'll say it again. There's 1.2 billion people in China, 1.2 billion people in India, 336 million in America. Okay, there's 4 times as many. 4 times as many. Wait, I'm not done. Our birth rate is declining.
If we need immigration,
Yes.
fine.
Well,
But
we do.
don't need illegal immigration.
Well, then Nick knows as well as I know. All you have to do is it takes 45 minutes per person to fill out a file and make them legal.
I'm talking about dealing with it as it is right now.
Well,
all
make
right?
them legal, Tom.
You know,
Send 1,000 clerk
I'm
typists
talking
down
about
there and
these
make them
riots. The
legal.
Democrats should not be, in a position where they have to defend these rioters, or that they're on the side of these rioters, or making
I don't think they're
excuses
defending
for
him. They're just saying what Trump is doing is incorrect. That's all they're saying.
No, but
They're
why-
saying
then
they're saying
why-
let the state deal with it. Let Newsom deal with it. Okay, Trump is using this as a diversion.
Well, sure he is.
It's just a
and they're- and
diversion. It's to
they're-
divert him away from being accused of being an Epstein guy. Okay, that's
dear
all it
Lord.
is.
Yeah, he cares about being an Epstein guy.
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
It's all branding.
No, he doesn't.
That's his big
he
thing.
He couldn't care less about any of that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think him being branded an Epstein guy is really going to put a crimp in his sail. All right. No, the Democrats are backing this. They are backing the whole immigration process.
How?
They're absolutely dead set against it only because
How are they backing it?
the liberals in this. I read the New York Times every day.
Yeah.
The big liberal paper.
Okay.
And every day there's articles about some poor migrant family that's
Yeah,
here
some
illegally,
4-year-old
and
that's
they're
with
getting
cancer.
a raw deal, and I'm tired of reading about it. I don't care. If people are here illegally, they don't belong here.
Which brings you back to my argument: make them legal. It's easy
No,
and it's
I'm
cheap.
not making people
He doesn't
here
want
illegal.
to.
Wait a minute. There was a poll that the biggest transition of voters from the Democrats to Republicans, okay, was immigrant U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
Okay, they backed Trump. Their numbers went so far over to Trump on the last election because of this exact
this
issue.
issue. This
They
issue
think it's
killed the
appalling
Democrats.
that they became American citizens by doing things the right way, by following the immigration code, by doing all the things they were supposed to do.
You
and
still
now,
haven't answered
and
my
now,
question.
And now we're just going to let all these people that did it illegally and just give them everything
What
that
do
they
you want them to do legally?
Leave.
That's not doing legally.
Leave. No, they need.
You
they
want them to
can't
have a
legally-
background check. You want them to have fingerprints.
Danny,
You want them to
they've
have.
talked about this.
Yeah.
They've talked about this. What good is a background check if I got to send somebody's fingerprints to Venezuela and the guy's going to go, oh, yeah, I don't know this guy. Oh, yeah, he's good. He's a good guy. Man.
That's how you do it legally,
Yeah,
Nick.
no. Who's going to background check them, Dan?
But that's legally.
Who's going to? But that doesn't make it reliable.
So you're saying you
got to have
legally isn't
reliable
good enough for you.
information. You have to vet people reliably.
And how do you do that, Nick?
I don't
How do
know,
we do
but you
it
don't
now?
do it just by coming out of.
How do we do it now?
Because people apply for visas.
Yeah,
they
and
have
what
to have
happens when they
sponsors,
apply for a visa?
They have to have sponsors. Where am I going? Who am I staying with? What am I doing here in the country?
Okay.
Yeah.
All
that's how
that
they do
takes
it.
about 45 minutes to do.
No, it takes a little longer than that.
No, it doesn't.
It's
Yeah,
a
That's all it
fairly
takes.
long
Yeah, it
process.
does,
I just
Danny.
had
It's
a friend that we
it
celebrate.
does. Don't simplify it. It does. It's a process.
So
That's
if
the
it takes a
process.
day,
That's the legal process.
okay, do it.
Then follow it. No, they're not. You just want to let
Then
everybody.
you don't
that's
have
here-
anybody to process
everybody.
them.
No, you just want to say
You
anybody
don't
that's here.
have anybody at
Yes,
any of the
they
ports.
do.
They're backed up.
Danny,
6 weeks they're backed up.
They were backed up because they had tens of
So
thousands.
get more people.
Oh, you're just
You
Jobs,
guys,
jobs,
you
jobs.
guys are mixing two issues
Yeah,
together.
that's just
One
ridiculous
issue
argument.
is what do we do to get
To make them legal.
To make them legal.
No.
And the
Yes.
one issue is what do we do to make them legal, and the other issue is what do we do with the ones that are here illegally. They're two separate things. The ones that are here illegally should be gone. How to bring people in legally in large numbers, how to do that
Again.
in an efficient manner, that's another issue.
Again, Obama had control of the House, Senate, and the presidency. They didn't do any kind of immigration reform.
No,
None.
because
Why
the
not?
Democratic Party is almost as captive to big business as the Republican Party is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But they want to blame, oh, you guys are against it. We had a bipartisan.
I don't care who the leaders are. I'm talking about what I personally, as a liberal, feel, okay? And I know how you can make somebody legal. It's not that hard. It doesn't take more than, let's say, an hour, even a half a day. You have 250,000 at the border. I'm not done yet. You have 250,000 at the border. It would take less than 30 days if you had 1,000 clerk typists, 1,000 fax machines, and 1,000 what do you call it? ID, photo IDs. I'd give each one a photo ID. They'd have a thumbprint on the back of it. They'd have a full set of fingerprints. Even if we couldn't find anybody in Venezuela, we'd have them.
You've made this argument before.
Well,
and
it's
all
still
you
an
wanna-
argument
and
that's
all
still true.
And all you want to do is process people.
Yes,
versus vet
which is
them.
what they did with our ancestors, Nick.
That was completely different.
Yeah, they didn't have the tools we have.
It was
We could do it
completely
better.
different time and era, and the whole process
So
of
what?
getting over here was a lot more arduous than it is now. It was harder for people to get over to this country.
Yeah,
so you could
no shit.
control the flow better when they.
No.
Oh,
Did you
please,
read
Danny.
this?
Please,
The
Danny.
Immigration Act of
I'm not going to read
1924.
the Immigration Act of
Okay,
1924.
well, this disputes what you said.
Why?
Okay, it says that they were so worried in 1924 that so many Italians, Greeks, and Jews were coming over the boat, on the boat, crossing the Atlantic Ocean, that big river, okay, in droves, and they didn't know what to do. They thought, they made a speech, this guy named Johnson made a speech on the Congress floor that said, we don't want the demographics of America to become diluted. Okay, so they established this act in 1924. And this act said you had to have a quota from each country. Now, they didn't name specific countries, they said all countries. But what they did to aim it at Southern Europeans and Jews was to say that no more than 2% of the people of that ethnic group that was in already a citizen of the United States could be allowed to migrate. 2%. Now, did they use the census of 1920? Wouldn't you think that would be the right?
I don't know if there was.
Well,
a
how about
census in
1910? How about 1900?
I don't
They
get
use
I
the
don't get
census.
point that you're
It's
trying to make here.
deliberate to keep certain people out. They wanted to
Yeah.
keep you and me out in
Okay.
1924.
That was
now
the role of the
us, our
government.
descendants, want to keep those people out now. Okay.
and Brendan would have been okay,
no,
though.
it's
Yeah,
it's
Brendan
American
were
citizen-
okay. The Irish were fine. Gangs in New York, though. Okay, you go a little bit further, and
It's
the Irish were bad.
It's American and American citizens through their elected officials want to control the flow of immigration into the country, whether it's in 1024, whether it's in
Certain
2024.
kinds of immigration.
Of course, it's changed over time. Yeah, we don't
No,
want those
certain
people in, or
people.
those people in, or those
certain
people in.
people. Okay, just certain people.
So who's the certain people?
South Americans right now.
Really?
South
We don't want the
Americans
Chinese
and
in?
Muslims. No, we had the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1885. We could still fall
Well,
back
so
on that.
all the Chinese
Okay.
people can come into
Well,
the
No, we
we're
used them
cool,
to.
we're cool with the Chinese now.
Yeah, we
Not
used them to
really.
build a railroad, and then we got
Not
upset
really.
because they only sent men over. And they said, oh, these Chinese men, they're going to come over after our women. You know, we got to let them bring the women over. So they let them bring the women, and then they slammed them
regulation
with the
of
with the
flow of-
1885 Exclusion
The
Act.
regulation of flow of immigrants has always been an issue, whether who
We're
you're doing or-
self-serving on it, is all I'm saying. Okay, we're
Okay.
not a good nation
Listen,
when it comes to that.
This whole thing is leading to one end. This whole
What?
illegal immigration, and it's very simple.
Yeah.
It's if these people stay in this country, they're going to get included in the census.
Yeah.
Okay, and if they're concentrated in sanctuary states, sanctuary cities,
Yeah.
Chicago, California,
Don't get more
New York,
representatives,
You'll get more representatives. You'll get more representatives.
and you lose power.
Well, then you'll never get it back.
It's power.
It's illegal. To me, that's illegal.
No, you know
power.
how you get it back? Do things that they like. Okay?
Well,
earn it.
Okay.
Earn it.
Okay. I would probably be a little bit more on board with that if
Yeah.
we had voting laws.
But you said
No,
you
no,
just
we
got
had
finished
voting
saying that these immigrants are going your way now. Okay,
No,
so
no,
you
no,
obviously
no,
have done
no,
something.
No. I said you immigrants that are U.S. citizens,
Yeah.
not illegal immigrants.
Well, make them citizens, and then they'll go your way.
Well, I don't know if that's true.
Well, you just said
no,
it's true.
no, because no, these people went.
I
through
mean,
the-
I don't need to be
Danny,
Socrates
no,
to
no,
say
no,
that,
but Danny,
okay?
what you want to do is just rubber stamp them and say, okay, you're here. And
Yeah,
you
like
don't
they
wanna
did
be
to our
like you.
ancestors.
They don't. You
They
don't-
didn't
you
even
don't
do
want-
that to his
No,
ancestors. They
they-
just said,
they
"Come on
allowed
in. We got a job for you."
Danny,
Okay.
Yelling
then
doesn't
they
make you
became-
right.
and then they
Remember,
became
Danny, yelling doesn't
bootleggers.
make you right. It's one thing to allow them in and to process them to. It's another thing to allow them to be U.S. citizens. There's a difference. They're not.
Yeah.
They're mutually exclusive things.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you want them to be U.S. citizens or do you want them to be allowed in the country?
Both.
Oh, okay. I don't
Both.
agree with that.
Both.
I don't
You know
agree.
what made Rome great? Rome wasn't great
I don't care
to
what made
become an
Rome great.
empire until when, Tom?
I don't.
When
care
did Rome
what
become an
made
empire?
Rome great.
Well,
When they gave the vote, when
didn't
Augustine
get-
gave the vote to everybody who was
we
Roman,
didn't give him the vote, but he expanded Roman citizenship to Gaul.
to Gaul,
And
right?
to what's today Yugoslavia, Croatia, and Albania, because those people were first-rate
Well, he made them
soldiers.
citizens.
He
He
wanted
made them
them to be
Roman soldiers.
be
You know what?
Didn't
legionaries.
Alexander
then-
the Great do that too?
Yeah, well,
no.
Ptolemy did, but only in Egypt, I believe.
And then it was Caracalla that made everybody in the empire a citizen around the year 300, I think.
And he had great baths.
After in early twos, he had great baths. Yeah.
Yeah,
But he made
Caracalla.
everybody a citizen in the empire. So everybody's a citizen now. And then, I think the Goths, maybe all these people that want to come in this country, we should put them in the army, let them be soldiers.
Well, I thought about that with the migrants from the Muslims that were leaving because of ISIS. I would have said, bring them over, but put them in an American version of the French Foreign Legion. The families would get refuge here, but the males would have to join a foreign legion and go back there and fight ISIS. Get their country back.
That would go over well.
Like the Swiss.
That would go over. That would be a
Well, that's
big
been
hit.
done in history before.
I'm sure it has. There's a lot of things that have been done in history.
And you're
It
not
doesn't make
forcing
it-
them.
it
You're
doesn't
asking them.
mean
We're
that
going
it's
to
good
give them
for us.
asylum. What we're going to give you asylum for? You go back out
Does
there
it-
and take your country back.
It doesn't mean that it's good for us in here now. Just
No.
because it was done sometime in history. Okay?
No,
I
history-
mean, I don't know. Maybe he might have had great baths, but I don't know. We got some pretty good baths now in this.
Are they free?
Yeah.
Well,
gotta pay
Rome,
for your water.
Rome lasted a long time.
Yeah,
They
700
were
years.
powerful for a long time.
All right, I got only one more issue with taxes, and that's that I was abroad. I was not abroad, a woman. I was I was in Italy not long ago, and there's nobody, I believe, that hates paying taxes any more than Italians. The place was any place that you talk to people, and I talk to Sicilians, about the government and stuff, okay? And they're eager to talk to you about it because they're eager to talk about America, right? And so I talked to them about their government, and it seems like if you want a life in politics, there's one word you never bring up, and that's taxes. Okay, they never raise taxes for any reason. If you say you're going to raise taxes, you're voted out of office.
That's George Bush.
Okay, and then
George won.
and then I'm driving down the streets in Sicily, beautiful country, beautiful everything. Roads are maybe 50 years old. Okay, hardly patched up. Okay, now they don't have as much damage as we have because they don't have the freezing part, and
Salt.
but they get a lot of salt and they get a lot of heat, so it does have some wear and tear in it. But the thing that struck me more than anything else, and it goes from Rome all the way south. Okay, now I haven't been to Milan or any of the northern cities in a long time, but I've been to the central and southern ones. All of them are just swamped with graffiti, garbage on the street. They have nobody. I didn't see anybody trying to take graffiti off of walls. I didn't see anybody picking up garbage any time of the day or night. I mean, the dumpsters out by the hotels would be sitting overfilled for days before they'd come by and empty them. They just don't want to do it. They would just...
No, they don't want to pay to have somebody do it.
Yeah, they don't want to pay somebody to do it.
And,
Right.
and in turn, they're not doing it themselves. My father said that he thought Italy during World War II was one of the dirtiest places he's ever been to.
It is dirty.
And it was dirty then, and it sounds like it's still dirty now. I don't know.
It's unbelievably dirty, and I don't know
if
why.
that's the way they choose to live, then don't pay taxes and live like pigs. I don't know what to tell you. Why do I care about it? Why the Italians don't want to pay taxes?
It's an
and why they live
example
like
of what
crap?
happens when you start thinking in terms of yourself above the society. Okay, if you're self-centered more and you want to keep all your money and you don't give a damn about your neighbor, or if the street looks like shit, or if there's potholes all over, you're not going to go for taxes. You're not going to pay for that. You're going to leave, all these people who say they don't want to leave Palestine because of this or that, they've been here for centuries. You could have people that lived in Illinois for 3 or 4 generations, and all you have to do is raise the property tax 1%, and they're off to Florida. Okay, I mean, they're
listen,
in Texas.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know anybody that lights off confetti cannons on when they're paying their taxes. Nobody likes to pay taxes.
No.
Okay, nobody does.
But everybody
All right.
likes the advantage of being in a civilized country.
In a civilized country, people don't have a problem paying taxes as long as their tax money isn't being abused.
Okay.
And that is that we could debate that for days as to what happens to our tax money.
What
There's
do you consider abuse? Yeah.
A lot of the things that just off the top of my head, some of the things that Doge had found that was just ridiculous in terms of where we're spending our money. Okay, there's a ton of it. I haven't looked on their website in a long time. They're very transparent about what they were finding and what they're doing. The whole.
Well, that brings me to my last point. The last point I was going to bring up was taxes usually get argued about because they're funneled through representatives. Okay.
Pork barrel.
Okay, because we're a representative government. Our Constitution has no provision for binding referendum. If it did, first of all, I propose that we have a 28th Amendment. And that amendment allowed for binding referendum. And
On
then
what?
on every issue.
Wow,
Why not? You don't like democracy.
And who's gonna be the panel that binds the referendum?
What do you mean? The
To
process.
take a binding referendum, you have to go to some type of tribunal that says, okay, here's my decision.
Well, it would be the Supreme Court.
Oh, so you're going to let all that power in the Supreme Court? They're going to decide everything that happens?
No. Binding referendum means that you have your legislator, you go to your legislator and you tell them this is what we want, this organization is coming to you to propose this bill. Let's say national health insurance.
So
All right,
we're
well,
not
let
a
me finish.
democracy, but you're talking about a democracy. Here's
Yeah.
a bill, everybody votes on it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have all the cronies in Cook County, they're ghosting the payroll and having their people vote on this, that, and the other thing, because we don't have voter ID
Oh,
laws.
come on.
Danny, please.
You're doing
You and I both know election.
No, don't
with
say that
election
because
officials
I
in
don't
Chicago.
know that.
Okay, well, I do.
Okay, I don't know that
I
people
do.
are going to ghost the election.
I know guys that have been doing it for years.
Okay.
They've been doing it for years.
And those guys are going to tip the
listen,
scale out of 300,
Are
out of
Democrats-
100 million
please.
voters.
Are Democrats the only people who do that?
Probably not. Probably not.
So that works-
but
that
it
works
seems
it
like
out.
the Trump
Trump got elected. How did that happen?
It seems like the Democrats are the ones that are against voter registration laws. They were dead set against it in Georgia. Okay,
No.
They were dead set against it in Georgia. They passed a reform law, and voter turnout went up considerably, and the fraud is almost eliminated out of the state of Georgia.
Okay, tell me
There was
something.
very little fraud anyway. Very little.
Tell me something.
Whatever was there is gone.
Do you believe in the founding fathers? I mean, as a conservative, are they
Sometimes,
pretty much?
Sometimes, I mean, I mean, I agree with
Can
every
you tell
point.
me someplace that they put in the Constitution anywhere where you had to have a photo ID in order to work to vote?
Well, Danny, since they didn't have cameras back then, I don't think they had photo IDs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's
I
not in the
think it's-
Constitution.
That
So
doesn't mean
what's the grounds for it?
That doesn't mean. I'm not sure if what the grounds are there for it, but I think if the legislature says, "Listen, we want to ensure the integrity of our
But they
elections,"
didn't.
They did.
There's
it-
no
they did
federal
in
law
Georgia.
that says it.
They did it in Georgia.
Because laws are created for voting by each individual state.
Correct. But
Okay.
I think if you're having a national election for a national office,
I agree with you there,
Okay,
but that's not the
then-
way the law is written, is it?
well, no, it's not.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the challenges that the people
This
that
legislature should have.
people that have in terms of trying to get voter registration laws on the books. That's kind of one of the problems that they're having.
Republicans
Okay,
think it's
but-
in their interest that fewer people vote, and Democrats
No.
think it's in their interest that more people vote. And that's the politics.
It's always been that
I don't
way.
know if I
That's
necessarily
the
agree with that,
politics
but
of it.
okay. I
That's
mean, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, that's
All right.
I think that's the
I
politics.
mean, listen, more people voted for the Republican than the Democrat this time around.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
that's
Well, that's
because-
good.
yeah.
That's democracy. You know, and what I'm saying is that if you had that kind of, if you had an up or down vote on abortion, you wouldn't have to worry about special interest groups. If you had an up and down vote on immigration, you wouldn't have to
But we
worry
don't-
about all this stuff.
We don't live in a democracy.
But we can.
We don't live in a democracy. Our form of government, our
Only because you
Constitution-
don't want to.
No, our Constitution is set up as a representative republic.
Yes, but it
okay?
can be changed.
Well, then get 2/3 of the states to change it.
28th Amendment.
It'll
Then
never
get
happen.
2/3
That's all
to
you need.
change it. Because that's the way you change it, Danny.
It'll
That's
never
what.
happen.
That's what. You know.
2/3 of the Congress
representative
says
republic does.
75% of the states to ratify.
Because I really don't want New York, Chicago, and California to decide everything that happens in my life.
No, you got
Because that's what would happen.
You
You
got
got
Wyoming
No,
deciding.
but if we do it his way,
Wyoming, North
if we do-
Dakota, South Dakota.
If we do it his way, that's the
Two
way to
cowboys and a steer, are voting, right?
Yippee ki man!
Wyoming, Wyoming is the what a place that is. It's beautiful and very.
You guys have a couple people in chat that have chimed in.
Go ahead,
Some
go ahead.
things before we wrap up here.
Yeah.
From Jordan, has a little bit here. Be nice if political didn't dominate the rationality. Back to Danny's point, this is a mess, and Mr. T is so responsible for creating both sides of the riots. Comprehensive immigration reform is a whole different subject. This is how you manage crowds horribly. I can't imagine a worse strategy and implementation unless they want to screw everything.
Completely disagree with Jordan. He didn't create this problem. What was created this problem was the influx of people that just crossed our borders in the last 4 years, unvetted, unchecked.
Yeah, but he's
in
talking
massive
about this
amounts.
specific
No,
police
no. The
action.
policy is Trump was ran on and was elected on removing these people.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing.
Yes.
And now people don't like it.
Some.
No, well, the George Floyd rioters of 2020 are now back out, and you can go on Craigslist and get paid to be a rioter now. Did you know
Oh,
that?
come on.
Okay,
Here we
Dan.
go.
Okay.
Oh.
You
Do we have
always
any
like to
college kids out there? Come
like-
on, college
you
kids.
like to dismiss anything that I say
You
without.
know, I hate to say it, but because I don't like Trump, but he's fulfilling his campaign promises.
Oh, yeah.
said he was going to do what he's going to do.
He definitely is. I mean, that's the whole idea of authoritarianism.
You had another one?
Yeah.
Just had John chiming in with a few here, but looks like battleground between perceived reality and politics is frightfully intermingled. How better to address it than conversation and debate? And then he mentioned he's moving to Montana soon, going to be a
They'll
dental,
call us tycoon.
going to be a dental floss tycoon.
Who's that?
Yay.
Who's that? Is that Jan McLeod?
He's going out there to be one of the bad guys from Yellowstone.
Raising it up and waxing it down, Johnny boy. Good for you.
Well, listen, I want to do a
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Before you do anything, John, I appreciate those comments because that's exactly what this program should be about.
Absolutely.
We talk, we discuss. We may not agree. We try to give two different viewpoints and come away with everybody thinking maybe a little different than when they walked in the door. Thank you for the comment, Johnny.
I want to do an episode on religion and science, but I don't have any connection with a real good evangelical taught theologian. So if you're out there or if you know of one, please contact us and let us know if you're available to be our evangelical representative.
Oh, I could get you theologians. I just don't know if I can get them here.
Well,
And they're not evangelical. They're Orthodox, but they are not. They're theologians.
well, the
I'll
more
find out.
fundamentalist, the better, because
Why?
Well, because I want to see a yin yang. I'm going to have science on the other side. Jordan will be on the other side, and we're going to be talking about the Big Bang versus and let there be light. Okay, and
We're
we
gonna.
can.
I don't know about just an open using this forum as an open debate.
Well, it's not an open debate. It's
Jordan-
just discussion like we're doing.
Jordan wants to come on, and somebody else wants to come on and argue those. Well, just like we did with the Palestine thing, we were supposed to have somebody that was Jewish to come
Yeah.
on and give us the contra argument to our guest.
Al Katz couldn't make it, but he says he will next time.
Okay,
Right, Al?
come on, Al.
So-
All right.
all right.
Well,
Anyway.
I have been watching Vincent Minnelli movies lately.
Okay.
Today I was watching the Bandwagon with Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse and
She was Greek,
was she?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Minnelli's kind of an overlooked American director, and he was a window dresser at Marshall Fields
Really?
before he went to Hollywood, and he started writing it. And he did Frank Sinatra's best movies. Some Came Running, with Frank Sinatra, and Dean Martin was in there as a Dranico, and he did The Bad and the Beautiful, Lust for Life was one of his movies. Meet Me in St. Louis, and so I like old Vincent. He was married to Judy Garland. Lisa
Right.
Minnelli's his daughter,
right?
Right.
and
And they got Liza Minnelli out of it.
yeah. So I just you get these. I get these movies off Amazon, off of iTunes.
Next
Amazon.
week is your week, Tom. So have you got anything in mind?
I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about movies.
Talk about movies.
Cool.
All right. That's,
I like
that's a good
the
subject.
movies is to me the great art form of the last of the 19th.
And you know
20th
what's
and
you know what's
21st
funny about
centuries.
movies is that you find that times in history where art imitates life and then life imitates art.
Oh
okay?
yeah.
So
Yeah, make my day.
well, I was looking at reruns of the Kiefer Sutherland thing where he's the last survivor.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and they've got a whole lot of stuff in there that is almost prescient to what's happening here now. It's kind of cool. And I didn't realize it then because I wasn't paying much attention to the politics of it. It was just a show.
I watched the show at first, like halfway into the second season, I could see that the show was going to start to be just conventional.
Yeah, it
and then
got
I-
off. It got off track. Okay, it got off
It
track.
lost its novelty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they had to bring They had to bring in the transvestite sister-in-law, and then they had to bring in the wayward brother. Okay, the drunken brother. He got involved in it, and it just got into tangents. Okay.
Carol and I have been binging Blacklist.
I do the Blacklist all the time. Okay. I mean, I don't know why she left the series.
I don't either.
Never saw it.
Okay. She was good. She was the.
We're almost done with. We're at the last.
It's
two of
funny
the
what
ninth
they've done with
season.
her, though. Her character. They
Don't
keep
tell
her,
me.
They keep her character in, but you never see her.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, she's referred to. She's still driving the
Sly,
story.
Yeah.
Sly Stone, R.I.P. pal. You were fun.
I wanna take you higher.
Family
boop
affair.
boop. Yeah.
Great James Brown funk song was "There Was a Time."
Well, yeah, with the two of them. But you know what? I can't be too cool with Sly. It's because of him those concerts were canceled. We had a whole summer of concerts that were lined up free for us in Grant Park. And after him, the mayor said,
Can't blame him.
You guys had your chance.
Can't blame him.
You messed it up. No more concerts for you.
Can't blame him. All right, folks.
So thank you, Sly.
Orchestra.
So, good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Been around the low and the mighty, heard the sound of heroes is frightening. In every town, 1,000 kings, somewhere downtown on Metro sings. In Union Station, a man's waiting for the last train. People say that the old world is dying. Every day there's a new baby crying.